Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is now time to start the program, which is Collaborative Study Webinar, Fiber to Fiber Textile Recycling, which is a joint session between municipalities and the Metropolitan Government of Tokyo. So this is the 11th such a seminar or webinar in this fiscal year 2023 in Japan. And this serves as an opportunity for international exchange as well. That means we have waste management administrators of overseas cities participating as well. We would like to go through the process of listening to the simultaneous interpretation. There's a control bar at the bottom of the screen, and there should be an icon that looks like a globe where it says interpretation. Please select the language of choice, and you're listening to the English channel now. And we will be projecting the Japanese version of the materials, but for the overseas participants, we will actually send via chat the English version, so please download that material. So first, I'd like to call upon Mr. Iwasaki from the Bureau of Environment, Sustainable Materials Management Division of Tokyo Metropolitan Government to say a few words. Yes, thank you very much. I am, as introduced, Iwasaki of Sustainable Materials Management Division of Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and I hope you can see the screen now with my materials. In the Metropolitan Government, we are undertaking projects to really promote advanced business and technology promotion, and there are reuse aspects, and so we are promoting business models that are innovative for reuse, and also we have plastic horizontal recycling of plastic, and we're collaborating with the business entities on this. And one of the things that we will cover today is on the right hand side in the red box, which is fiber to fiber recycling of polyester clothing. This is therefore horizontal recycling. TEIJIN Frontier and Fiber CDM are the two entities involved, and we are conducting this as a joint effort, how to improve the collection ratio of, for example, used paper resources, for example. And together with TEIJIN, for example, we have been conducting various webinars and seminars where we can learn about used clothing, among others. And therefore, we thought that this would be a good opportunity for us to exchange information with not just the municipalities in Tokyo, but overseas city administrators as well. And we have three speakers today. First, from METI, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, Mr. Yoshimura, Deputy Director of the Manufacturing Industries Bureau's Lifestyle Industries Division, will talk about the government's effort to talk about what they're doing in this area. And then the second speaker is Mr. Fujita, who is going to talk about the current situation of fiber to fiber or fiber and clothing recycling. What is the current status? What is the history? And what is the prospects for the future? So he will be speaking about the current status from the field. And number three is Mr. Tomotaki of TEIJIN Frontier. And he's going to talk about fiber to fiber recycling, recent technological development, as well as the efforts made by TEIJIN Frontier as a company. Now, the recycling of plastic resources is what we are looking at, especially with a focus on fiber and textile. I know that we are addressing plastic-related recycling, and at the same time, in textile area, I think a plastic group is not really addressing this area, which is textile, because textile is an important aspect because it has to do with fashion. And therefore, we hope that this will be a good learning opportunity for all the participants. So I would like to introduce the first speaker today. He's from METI. He's the Deputy Director of Lifestyle Industries Division of Manufacturing Industries Bureau. Mr. Koichi Yoshimura, the floor is yours, please.
My name is Yoshimura from Lifestyle Industries Division of Manufacturing Industry Bureau of the Ministry of Economy, Industry and Trade. And thank you for this opportunity to speak today. So I'm going to talk about how we can establish a recycling system in the textile industry. First of all, the market size and also the production size. So we have various data. So I'm going to base my talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to talk about the international developments and also policies about the resource recycling. So the first page, this is about the market size and the production size in Japan. So it shows the development of the domestic development. In 1990, it was 1.53 billion, but now in 2022, it has reduced, it was declined to 870 million yen. And the changes in domestic production is on the right side. And next is about the apparel supply volume. And it was about 2 billion units in 1990, but in 2022, it increased by more than 1.8 times. On the right-hand side, import penetration rate of clothing in domestic apparel market, as you can see, it's increasing rapidly. About 98% is imported from abroad. Page 3, and this shows the retail prices of clothing. And as the domestic market shrinks, while the number of supply units is increasing, meaning the retail price is declining. So this is the overall trend. On page 4, so the supply and the disposal of clothes, 730,000 tons of clothing are discarded annually after use. And many of them are discarded from households. On the right-hand side, it shows destruction amount, which is 85,000 tons. And the reused is 19% and recycling rate is 15%. When we use recycling, it means that the fibers are recycled into waste rags and clothes, and for automotive use, such as the automobile sheets and so forth. And this is about the need to promote fiber-to-fiber horizontal recycling. As you can see on the first bullet point, the old clothing and how we can reduce the volume of it, and then you need to create a new demand, and we need to work on that. And the second point is that the historically, post-consumer PET bottles waste has been the primary source of recycling fiber. But as you can see in the graphs, and the fiber is represented by orange color. And it used to be around 40% or 50%. But since the last 5 years or so, it has gone down to 30% and 20%. The PET bottles are the horizontal recycling system. That means that the fiber is beaten by bottles in terms of purchasing the resources for recycling. And the next page. In Europe, there are some developments in resource recycling. And the European Commission in 2020, in March, released the EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles. And by 2030, textile products placed on the EU market should be long-lived and recyclable, and to a great extent made of recycled fibers. And for Japanese textile industry to keep its competitiveness globally, it is essential to bear in mind such developments internationally and pioneer in establishing textile recycling efforts so that we can be competitive in Europe and not others. And about this strategy for sustainable circular textiles, the first point is the design requirements. Second is the strengthening information presentation through the digital product passport. Transparency should be enhanced. So this system is going to be mandatory, and also stop overproduction and overconsumption, and stop discarding unused textile products, and reviewing extended producer responsibility and countermeasures against greenwashing. So on page 7, and this is an example of clothing information disclosure in France. In France, effective January 1st, 2023, a new decree on the obligation to inform consumers about the environmental quality and characteristics of products in the generative that generate waste has been in effect, and that requires companies to disclose information about the percentage of recycled materials and so forth. And on the right-hand side, you can see an example of information disclosure. So to the product, the data should be attached to provide to consumers. And the next page. And these are the moves toward regulating greenwashing in France and Europe. Greenwashing is the claim to be eco-friendly, while in actuality it is not, and that might mislead the consumers. And there is an rapidly emerging developments towards regulating greenwashing. And then there is a decree in France, and the EU is also will be implementing Green Claims Directive. Next. And this is an example in France about the clothing and footwear repair subsidy program. And before, discarding the product after use, but the repair is recommended so that the product can be used for a longer time. So under this program, it seeks to increase the proportion of repaired clothing and footwear to 35% by 2028. And they have created a fund for repair work. And the next page. And this is about the developments in Europe and other countries regarding schemes to ban the destruction of clothing. So eco-design regulation has been issued. It's still in the draft stage, but under this regulation, certain operators will have to meet certain requirements about the discarding. Next is about the situation in France, and you can refer to this slide afterwards. So based on these developments overseas, the METI has launched this study group on textile resource recycling systems. And human rights due diligence and also the environmental considerations have now become, very big issues in Europe. And there has been a rapid progress in adopting sustainability measures. So in Japan, the clothing reuse and recycling rate has remained only on around 35%. Therefore, and also the fiber to fiber recycling rate is less than 1%. So this scheme, this graph shows just an image of textile resource recycling system. So collecting, sorting, and fiber recycling, design and manufacturing and sales, these are the four major aspects of this recycling system about which we have been having discussions on. And this is about the more details of our discussions. As for the collection for textile recycling, we will have to develop an environment about the cooperation in recycling and the collecting and sharing the good practices, and also providing information about the recycling technologies to municipalities, and also certifying the plan for recycling, and also to provide the support to such certified business operators, as well as providing information widely to stakeholders.
And next is about sorting and fiber recycling. For the collected used clothing, about 70% are polyester or nylon, in other words, chemical textile, and about the remaining 30% is cotton or wool. So there are different types of fiber or textile. And so on a per material basis, we need to do sorting, separate them so that they can be regenerated. So we need technical development for that, and such efforts are to be supported. And next is design and manufacturing. For design part, guideline for eco-friendly design is needed, and therefore in this fiscal year, this is already made into a project, and we're implementing that development. And material flow. For different materials such as chemical or other materials, how much are actually reused or disposed of, material flow has to be in detail understood. And also new labeling system has to be considered as well. And number 4 is sales, the fourth step, recycling. And also labeling rules need to be developed and standardized, and also harmonizations with overseas systems. These are some of the aspects that need to be looked at in the sales step. And next page, this is about the collection part. As I have already mentioned, we need to enhance awareness and also develop depots of where people can bring used clothing, and system should be improved so as to make this whole process more smooth. And next page addresses sorting and fiber recycling. To be specific, the most important here is what's called the blended fiber materials. They need to be sorted and then regenerated, and using NEDO's advanced technology development projects, for example, will lead to the development of such innovative technologies. And also RFID tags should be leveraged, placed or attached to the garments or clothing, and by reading the information on the RFID tags, automatic separation or selection sorting can be enhanced or made easier. And next page is about the selling as well as manufacturing. Now there is this guideline for eco-friendly design that is being formulated, and we will also review how the labeling system should be going forward. And with regard to recycling or recycled fabric, how do we make sure that people know that they are recycled materials. We need to have a system there as well. And at the bottom, I have written the awareness of the general consumers being needed. So we have to build that awareness. So these are some of the items we're considering. And on this page, this is for your reference, which I will skip for now. Moving on to the next page. This page explains the way forward. Right now, I mentioned the study group or session, which actually had a summary come out in September already. But then in November last year, Textile Industry Subcommittee of the Industrial Structure Council was reinstated and resumed consideration of the different challenges that we face. And going forward, we're going to address additional issues, and we plan on developing the vision and roadmap for resource recycling of textile products. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Mr. Yoshimura. In the central government, textile and fiber is positioned as an important area, and there have been subcommittees as well as reports issued by such groups. Now, we would like to spend the next few minutes for exchange of views as well as Q&A. If you have any question or comments, you're more than welcome to raise them. And if you have a question or comment, please use the raise hand function of this system. Well, seeing none for now, if I may, in the meantime, ask a question myself while others are thinking about their questions. Now, earlier, you showed us one of the pages where, I don't know exactly which page it was, but I think you said about 700,000 tons of clothing is disposed of, or actually, of which 500,000 tons are disposed of. At least that was what I think I read. Now, used fabric or used clothes and clothing, we thought Japan was one of the best countries to do that. For example, those things that are primarily destined to be recycled, I think there were many that are recycled. I was thinking that the ratio of recycling was much higher than what you have shown us. So maybe that was a misunderstanding, because I now know that there are a lot more that is disposed of. So given that as a fact, what do you think is really the reason for the high ratio of disposal? What are some of the factors that are behind that high ratio? Well, expensive clothing still has needs for reuse. However, for those that are not that high-end, the so-called fast fashion items, the clothing and underwear, these things are hard to reuse as is. In other words, it's unlikely that they will be reused as used second-hand clothing. And if, of course, if we can collect them for reuse, maybe reuse is possible. However, as in terms of commercial value, it would be quite difficult to have added value to such reused old or second-hand clothing. So actually, collection is done primarily through the local governments or certain entities. Storefront collection is not really standard. In other words, most of such not so high-end products or clothing are disposed of as waste, combustibles. And if there's a lot of volume, and if these clothing can be collected as clothing, of course, we need to have technology in place to regenerate them as fiber. But with technological development, it might be possible to reuse them as fiber or clothing. However, because of low value add, it is rather difficult to collect them in the first place. I see. Thank you very much for your input. Now, related topic, if I may ask you a related question. So you mentioned value added. The volume of clothing. In terms of number of items, I think there's a lot more. More are being sold in terms of the number of clothing items. Uniqlo, other fast fashion items are sold more in terms of the number of items. However, things that are referred to as, well, fast fashion comes from the notion of fast food, and clothing is different from food. It is something that should be used over a longer term than food that is eaten. And we want people to treasure the clothing that they have. But in the governmental studies or committee discussions, of course, we're trying to reuse plastics or not dispose of plastics. But as far as fast fashion is considered, is there any direction or policies by the central government as for the direction of fast fashion items? Well, as of now, when we say fast fashion, I think fast fashion is not really suitable for the current day and age. I should call them old fashion, not fast fashion. Sustainable fashion is what we should think about. For the textile industry, we use the term sustainable fashion so that we can increase the number of eco-friendly fashion items. As you have rightly pointed out, before recycling, long-term use is very important in our view. And on top of that, reuse comes. And then, so a longer life of a product. And of course, there will come a time when that item is disposed of, but we want to utilize the resource through recycling. So that is the end state that we would like to see happen. Thank you very much. Very clear.
So, any question? Oh, yes, Yamada-san, please. My name is Ito from the Nakano City Ward. So, there are different technological developments occurring right now. In our city, in 90% of our city, we are collecting old clothes, but it's completely private to private dealings. These are collected and are sent to the wholesaler. But when we are talking about these new technological developments and how I wonder the central government is thinking about the flow of the collected clothes to conventional wholesalers in view of these new technological developments. Yes, thank you for the question. The reuse of recycling them into an automobile, absorbing materials in the form of felt. These are the uses that are applied to the old clothes. And first, what we have to do is to expand the uses of the recycled fibers. Because it's now very difficult to think about how the fibers can be recycled within the current available uses. So we have to expand the uses. Because we are talking about recycling the fiber into the material fiber. And of course, when we talk about the reusing products, of course, it's not costly. Whereas when we try to convert them into the original material as fibers, it will incur costs. So it's important that we try to decrease the initial costs as much as possible. And if we can then regenerate the old clothes to clothes that can be worn again, and that would be ideal. But yeah, that's something that we have to do first of all. I wonder if I answered your question. Well, it was a little bit difficult to understand, but I think I'm going to ask about this question to the next speaker too. Thank you very much.
Yes, as was just mentioned, of the waste that is primarily recycled, for example, iron or waste paper, they are actually brought back to the original resource. When it comes to textile or clothing, bringing them back to the form of fiber and spinning it into threads again, it's a slightly different process, I think. I think that's clearer now, but that is also the reason why we have certain challenges and we have difficult time really understanding how things are done in this area of textile recycling. So thank you very much. Any other question or comments, or maybe sharing of your experience in your respective local community? Anybody? Well, Mr. Yoshimura, because you're with the METI, you're very busy and you have to leave us immediately after the presentation. But now we know that you can, Mr. Yoshimura, you can stay on until the very end of the program. So thank you for your contribution. Of course, we have two other speakers from Nakano and TEIJIN Frontier, and there might be questions that can be answered by you as well. So if you can stay on, we would appreciate your input as well. Thank you for now. Okay, we now would like to move on to the next presentation, but let me share my screen again to introduce the second speaker from Nakano & Company, Mr. Fujita, Managing Director and Head of a Recycling Department. He's one of the top-notch expert in this area, very active in different fronts. And he's going to talk about the current status and challenges of textile recycling. He's going to talk about the realities of reuse and recycling of textile products. With Mr. Fujita, the floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Fujita from Nakano Company Limited, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. As Yoshimura-san spoke about the overall situation, so some of my presentation may overlap with what he already spoke, but I would like to talk about this question from the viewpoint of the business operator. So the current status and challenges of textile recycling is the theme of my presentation. And this is the 21st or 22nd year since I joined the company, and I'm 48 years old. And so there was a talk about the recycling of paper and bottles and cans, and these are called waste primarily destined to be recycled. And even before the war, my company, was working on the recycling, not just on the textile, but on other items. So we are member of different associations, business associations, and more recently, the upcycle platform, and also the different kinds of organizations that are working on the development of new technologies. So we are also trying to merge emerging future technologies with our conventional business knowledge. So although I'm busy, but I try to be part of these different associations. And this is the 90th anniversary this year of our company. And at the time of its inception, there was no word in Japanese recycling, but we have been working on recycling of the textiles, and from the collection to sorting, and also re-commercializing, and as well as sales. So we are dealing with all of these different phases in our company, and we have 8 sales offices nationwide. The waste clothes and rags, or the work gloves, which are made from the old textiles, recycled textiles, and we sell those products. So we have 8 sales offices nationwide, and we have 2 factories and 3 overseas bases, China and the Philippines, and we have 2 factories in the Philippines where we produce the recycled products from the recycled textile. So in order to address the current situation and the issues that we have, let us briefly look back on the history of textile recycling, as well as the issues that we are facing in terms of the fiber recycling. And some of my talk may overlap with what Yoshimura-san said. And also recycling in the apparel industry. There are many different companies working on this, and we are the recyclers who are servicing the collection and sorting parts. And I'd like to talk about how we collaborate. So first of all, very briefly, history of fiber recycling. And even in ages times where the word recycling was not existent, we always engaged in recycling. When somebody no longer uses certain things, and somebody else would get it and use it, or they recycle it. So even if we did not have the word recycling, but from the ancient times, the human beings have been engaged in this. In the 14th century, already in Japan, we have the literature testifying to the fact that there was a recycling business. And in manufacturing industry, there are some things that are discarded, and those were used for some other purposes. But after the Meiji Restoration, after the modernization started in Japan, this recycling became commercialized, and there were many new businesses that emerged from that. And before the war, we did not have automobiles in use, and we would be located in the densely populated area so that we can go visit the different houses and collect the textiles with rickshaw carts and so forth. And we would send them to the paper company as resources, materials for paper making. And the OG paper company was one of the first companies in Japan to start producing paper. And there is a museum of that company where you can see the description that in old days paper used to be produced from the recycled textile. But around 1940. The material was completely switched to pulp, and but there was a time when the textiles were used for materials for paper making. But one of the major uses for recycled textiles was waste clothes to be used in factories. And during the wartime, those were used and shipped to the military factories. And the next use is the shoddy, meaning recycled back into fiber. So the used clothes would be converted into the fiber, which would become the resources. And it used to be done all the time many years ago. And even now, we do shoddy, for example, cashmere and wool sweater. First, we will separate into different colors, like 50 colors, and by each color, we are going to convert it into wool. And then it can be converted back to about the same quality as wool, and the wool will be used to make sweaters or other products. And other than that, for interior, interiors for the automobiles, the felt. So there are two different kinds of shoddies for making felt and for making yarn, spun yarn. And before the war, during the war, the recycled fiber was used a lot for military purposes. And also they were placed under control by the state during the war. And after the war, the demand was shifted to heavy industry sector from the military purposes. And Japan experienced a special demand after the war, and we also experienced a very high-speed economic growth. In around 1950, there was a big change in the recycled textile history. And before the war, the natural silk was used to produce kimono, but then around 1950, synthetic fibers emerged to be used in the mass production of clothes. And before the synthetic fibers came around, it was difficult to expand the production, expand the volume of production of kimonos or the Western clothes. But this coincided with the age of rapid economic growth, which resulted in the higher income for ordinary citizens, and the citizens are now able to buy more clothes per person, like 10 clothes and so forth. So as the volume of the clothes increase, so the life cycle of one product becomes shorter. And if that situation goes on, there will be more wastes from textiles and clothes, apparel. And it's not just about the apparel. As the convenience in this society increases, so does the volume of the waste. And we experienced various problems accompanied, for example, the question of the incineration and so forth. So since around 1970, and because of the emergence of synthetic fibers, when it comes to producing the waste clothes to be used in the factories, synthetic fibers were not very good because they do not absorb the oil very much. So these synthetic fibers were not directly used for waste clothes and for converting into the fiber. So that was the problem that we experienced at that time. In the old times, people would wear their clothes until it becomes really, really shaggy. However, now, as the economy grows and the people become more affluent, and since around 1970 or so, people would just discard their clothes while they can still be worn. So rather higher in quality. So we created this system of recycling textile, and one is the shoddy, and one is the waste clothes, and the other is to converting it back into the fiber. And these were the three pillars.
And from here, again, for the first time, recycling as a term comes up. And from here on, let's look at the economic developments. There's a higher labor cost, and also there were some crises occurring. More recently, we had COVID-19, which was a major shock. The goods and people did not move. However, still we had old clothes becoming waste, and so that became a continuous challenge. So let me skip this slide just for your reference later. Now, so I looked back on the history. So what is the current status of fiber recycling? Mr. Yoshimura's data was a little different in terms of the numbers, but what I have heard and seen, I put this slide together. In Japan overall, there's about 1.3 million tons of unnecessary clothing generated. Well, this is the data that I have seen before. And another is what I heard on the radio. Somebody was saying in a program that on a per head basis, annually, 10 kilograms of clothing is purchased, but then 10 kilograms are disposed of. In other words, we have 120 million people, and let's say you do the multiplication, and then I think the total would be approximately 1.3 million tons that is disposed of. So that really matches. And of the used clothing, 30% is recycled. However, remaining 70 are disposed of, roughly speaking. So there was an earlier question as to why so high percentage of disposal. Well, only 30% of the Japanese land area is covered by the service area of the operators like us who actually collect and recycle products. Osaka, Hyogo area in the western part and Kitakyushu area. There are certain companies like us from way back, and they still are active. And so they have ease of recycling and collection. And another other element is close proximity to ports, seaports, because these collected used clothes were exported elsewhere, outside. And however, there are problems of smaller operators disappearing. In other words, you have to be big in order to survive as collectors. And so about 70% of the land area of Japan are uncovered by these operators like us. Therefore, the waste are disposed of. And about 400,000 or 500,000 are actually recycled, but the total, this is the estimate as to how much is recycled. And so how much of that is rag or how much is shoddy? I don't have the exact breakdown. However, so 260,000 tons are exported. And then based on what we have, as data of sorting and separation about shoddy and waste cloth or rags amount to about 300,000 or 350,000 tons. So that's the amount that we are handling. And there is no other parties that are on par with this level handled. So we are the only ones, I guess. And of course, the collection methods can be government-led, among others, but government-led is the predominant pathway for collection. For example, Nakano ward person said that there's a once a week frequency of collecting used clothing. And towards recycling, of course, the cost is incurred and that is paid for by taxpayers' money. And so I think this is one positive element of collection that's happening in Japan. And as I mentioned earlier, 50% is used clothes, waste cloth or rags 20%, and shoddy 30%. That's the breakdown according to my data. Let me explain the recycling chain, how things happen. So starting from the top left, you have in the truck not just the used clothing, but metal and other collected valuable resources that can be recycled. And next is the sorting step. 270 or 280 different types are the separation criteria. Of course, it's done by people, by manually. So 280 different materials into which we sort the used clothing. But used clothing can vary so much. And therefore, we need to actually do this manually because it's rather difficult to sort according to the needs of the current society. Of course, we need to develop automation as well to shift to automated process. But for now, we have to have manual process. And then the used clothing will be exported partially and also reuse in secondhand clothing stores. 55% is domestic such stores, but 45% are exported. And you see waste cloth or rags that are used in industrial facilities for cleaning, for example, and about 20% is used in the factories around the country. And the third part is shoddy, which makes up about 30% of the total. Let me explain by showing you some photos of shotting related process. This is the plant in the Philippines. And so it's you start by separating the accessories away from the fabric part, and then you cut them into smaller pieces, which is the top middle, and then top right. This is the intermediate step. You see the small pieces of fabric and garment. You keep on sort of scratching the surface of the fabric, and then that damages the fabric, and then that brings all the material all the way back to fiber state. You see the top right. This is the collection of fiber, which is cotton, basically. And then, of course, if they're made into felt, that can be used for interiors of automobiles. But in our case, we use some of them for making gloves. And also, there's a machine that can standardize the size of the yarn. And then we twist them, spin them, and then we have this process of making recycled gloves, which will be used in different factories around the world. So 50% reuse and 20% rag and shoddy for interiors of automobiles and recycled gloves. That part, shoddy part, makes up 30% of the total. So this is really the analog recycling system that we have in place. And these are the challenges that we face in fiber recycling. As Mr. Yoshimura mentioned, we need to have new collaborators. Otherwise, we will not be able to collect more old clothes because the shoddy, the rags, and these are used in industries. But when you think about the way forward, will we have more industrial facilities in Japan? Maybe not. Maybe the number of factories will decrease in the future. In other words, even if we collect second-hand clothing, there is no need for such shoddy. Maybe we can sell or export as clothing, however, otherwise as rags or shoddies, industrial users will no longer be there, or at least will diminish. Therefore, we need to develop new customers there or collaborators. And then apparel industry is trying to recycle their products. For example, fiber trading companies or more comprehensive trading companies are involved, where we together think about how best to recycle the various products and materials. And of course, as we go down that path of recycling, there are a lot of challenges. And we're talking here about fiber to fiber recycling. So we wonder how that can be done. Whether it is cotton or polyester, it is rather rare for us to come across anything that is 100% one material, single material products. So you might wonder, how much do we have mono material products? This is the table that has all the materials listed. In the Kanto area, 1,000 kilograms, or 1 ton, that is, we actually have a breakdown. So fiber to fiber. Okay, let's say you have cotton 100% or 100% polyester, or polyester plus cotton. All these top three is a little over 30% of the total, first of all. So fiber to fiber recycling is what you want to do, but maybe 30% is only the percentage that we get. So what should we do about the rest? So we have to separate different materials because they're not 100% single material. But again, to begin with, the single material products are rare to find. Therefore, that is really challenging. And fiber to fiber recycling, of course, TEIJIN Frontier presenter is following my presentation, so I will not go too much into that. But I think there's future in fiber to fiber recycling. But in addition to that, for example, this cotton t-shirt is made from this fiber to fiber recycled material. And also, this is another example which is actually used in this baseball stadium in Hokkaido, where this used clothing is collected and used as raw materials for the benches there in the stadium, and also fiber soil, which is a light soil. And this lady is a fashion model, Kiko, and Mizuhara, and she is actually involved in this effort. So fiber to fiber recycling is one avenue, but we're trying to look for new ways and new collaborators that will help us utilize recycled materials. So we're collaborating with many people and many entities. Finally, this is the final slide. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fujita-san. Thank you for your presentation. What's happening on the level of the business operator, you talked about that. And now let's have a question and answer session. If anyone has any question or comment, please raise your hand. There was a question from the Nakano City, And then that was answered by Yoshimura-san too. But if you can, the person from Nakano City, can you also raise your question to Fujita-san too about the question that you were talking about? Yes, again, this is Ito from Nakano City. So in our city, once a week we collect the used clothes. And this is done by the private operators, and that means that we do not have to use as much taxpayers' money as would be needed otherwise. And thank you. And my question is that companies like yours has been developing different routes for collecting textiles and used clothes, and what do you think that you can be involved in the new technological developments? The business operators that I know of, for example, are not really capable of engaging in the new technological developments, and how the small and medium-sized business operators, when they try to survive for the future, and what do you think would be the ideas that they can think of so that they can survive in the future? Thank you for the question. Regardless of the size, in our industry, the recycled, do you hear me okay? Okay. It's a recycled resources that we are trying to generate. So there are 4 different exits, so to speak, for the collected textile to be used. So the question is really that we can really generate the value to the recycled materials so that that can be used for other purposes. So and we are in our company actually selling the regenerated products that are derived from the recycled materials. So whether these products can be sold or not, that's very important. So for example, polyester 100% material and how much it costs, and that is used for producing apparel products, and whether that particular product can really absorb the costs or not. And so we have to think about, whether the recycled material, is really a burden for the producer of the final product or not. We have to think about that. So we have been working, collaborating with different people from different industries so that we can come up with a business model. And if that business model works, and that we can really generate added value, then that will be successful. And then the people will be motivated, business operators will be motivated to use the 100% polyester fibers, from their recycled material. So first of all, polyester 100% material, and what will be the cost for dealing with that? That would be a very important question. Yes, thank you very much. I think the cost is the most important issues. When it comes to recycling, the consumers, even if the recycled products may be a little bit higher in prices, but they are interested in purchasing such products. And that would motivate further the business operators and recyclers to challenge the new businesses. And this is something that I would like the central government to really focus on. So if the central government can, work on that so that the costs can be reduced for the business operators, that would be a good thing, I think. Thank you.
Any other question? Thank you very much. I have a few questions myself, if I may. First, you mentioned, or there was a mention of waste that is primarily recycled paper, for example. Old paper wholesalers are there, and that material goes back to paper making companies, and they're made into paper again. And iron or metal, like you actually have this pathway so that they can be made into cans, for example. But when it comes to used cloth or clothing, it's different. Companies like your company, Nakano, for example, need to make tremendous efforts to look for collaborators or exits, so to speak, so that recycled products can be distributed. So thank you very much. For paper or metal and bottles, I think it's quite different from the fabric recycling. So this is just a comment. Now, administrative and collective collection, as well as private company collection. There are different ways by which used clothing can be collected. For example, Uniqlo has storefront collection boxes, and Nakano Word is actually using collective collection method. Now, predominantly, the administrative collection is the majority. I think, roughly speaking, what's the breakdown of the three, the administrative, the collective, and the private sector company-led collection? What's the split? Okay, Nakano Word. A collective collection is what they're doing, not individually, but collective. So there was a correction made there. And as an answer to your question, there is actually no data, specific data to answer your question. Quite difficult to answer, therefore. Administrative collection, I said, is easier for people to participate. I said that because Nakano Word, they have collective method of collection. It's the same, I think. What I'm trying to say is the frequency being weekly, or the location where you bring the used clothing, if it's in front of your house, it would be much easier. And then Nakano Word is using collective method. Now, the current mayor changed from the individual collection to collective collection. However, from the standpoint of the citizens, it's not so different. And so for the stations being used or depots being used, there are such method as well. So the administrative and collective collection, in my view, I think it's more than 90% of the total. All the ward residents or city residents, they actually bring their used clothes to collective collection or depot collection. And because the waste vinyl bags are not for free anymore, so they don't put the used clothing in combustible waste. So what I'm trying to say here is administrative collection and station or depot-based collection. These two are the predominant ways of collection of used clothing. Okay, thank you very much. So old cloth or clothing being collected, when you think about that, storefront collection is done by private sector companies. That's true. However, for the ease of the citizens disposing of or actually contributing used clothing, administrative and collective, as well as this depot-based are the easiest. I don't see any further questions. So I think this is the end of our session with Mr. Fujita of Nakano. But Mr. Fujita talked about the importance of exit or collaborators. So thank you very much. And next speaker is Mr. Tomotaki, who is from TEIJIN Frontier, and he's going to talk about the development or issues in realizing fiber-to-fiber recycling. And I'm sure that he will share with us various experience so far. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Tomotaki from TEIJIN Frontier, and thank you for this opportunity. Do you see my screen okay? Yes. Thank you. So, I'm from the Sustainability Strategy Promotion Department of TEIJIN Frontier, and I'm going to talk about the issues in realizing fiber-to-fiber recycling. And to introduce myself, I was doing my research in the Kyoto Industrial Textile University Graduate School. And since joining TEIJIN, I have been working on the fiber recycling. So this is my agenda. And we are going to focus on polyester that my company is dealing with. And I'm going to talk about the recycling of polyester. To begin with, this is the history of TEIJIN Frontier's recycling. And our company was established in 1918, and then the name was TEIJIN, Teikoku Jinzo Kenshi, and was the first in Japan to commercialize production of rayon. And then in 1958, we began the polyester fibers operation. And then in 1995, we commenced sales of Eco-PET, material recycled polyester, and in 2000, and we commenced sales of Eco-PET Plus, and in 2002, we commenced Eco-Circle project, a circular recycling system for polyester fiber products. But because of the Chinese regulations limiting the inflow of the wastes, it had to be completed, but in 2020, and we are working on the development of a new technology for polyester recycling, and we are working towards realizing a circular economy in 2050. And so what is the difference in these days in terms of the recycling polyester? It used to be about how we can recycle, we can ensure the cycle of the resource use. But in recent years, the more focus is on sustainability and how we can ensure sustainability in our material flow. And this graph is from the new textiles economy, and the used apparel products, 73% of them after use will be landfilled or incinerated, and the 12% is reused, but it is one use recycle rather than cascaded recycling, and the closed loop recycling is only less than 1%. And the material flow of Japanese apparel products, about 70% is just destroyed or used for thermal recovery. And this number is on par with the number in other countries. So that means that the fiber recycling is an issue common to the entire world, not just to Japan. So to such issues, what are the vision for the future at TEIJIN Frontier? And we want to create a circular economy. And conventionally, we just procured and manufactured and used and disposed of. That is a linear configuration. But what we are trying to aim for is circular configuration. So we recover and we sort, and if that can be used again, then we will reuse it, and we separate and we recycle. And we also need to select the methods that will contribute to reducing the environmental footprint, such as less energy used and others, and also the priorities of recycling. The recycling is not the first option, but it should be the final option. First, start with the recovery, and then we sort them out so that the products that can be still used would be directly put to reuse, or that we recycle in terms of the chemically and mechanically, and then we separate. In order to enable this kind of a circular configuration, easier to recycle, easier to use, and also the long life are the important elements for the design of the product. And it's not just applied to apparel, but the automobiles and the interior, which uses the fibers. And the same type of circular configuration should be studied for other industrial materials. So let me talk now about the types of fiber recycling and the methods of recycling. There are two major types: mechanical recycling, which employs the physical method, and the other is chemical recycling, using the chemicals. And looking into more details, the waste cloth and also the shadi, as Nakano company talked about, and also the thermofusion mechanical recycle is another type. And as for chemical recycling, there are different types depending on the technology used, and I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. But before that, the characteristics of mechanical recycle uses less processes, and it's good in terms of the energy conservation, but the quality-wise, it's not ideal because there are some deposits and there are some foreign matters involved. Chemical recycling, on the other hand, would convert back into the fibers. So theoretically, it can be recycled indefinitely, but that means there are more processes involved, and it uses greater energy. So in order to aim for circular configuration, we have to think about costs and energy used, and also the quality of the recycled material. And we have to pursue both in the technologies. And this is about the polyester recycling technology that we have, and the orange part is the mechanical recycle that uses thermofusion. That means the additives and the deposits remain. So when these accumulate over times as the recycle continues, that means that there is a limit to the number of recycling. But whereas the chemical recycling is different, and we have a BHET and DMT methods, but I'm just going to simplify them as calling them to type A and type B. And then the first BHET BET method, degrade to the level of the moleculars, and then this type B DMT method further degrades chemically and convert into BET and also to polymerization. But the BET method cannot completely eliminate the additives and the deposits, which means the colorization still remains. So in terms of quality, it is a problem. So we are now working on the new technology so that we can eliminate such a problem. So this is a new bed method, and we are using a new catalyst, and so that we can create equal diverging quality of the material. And these are the photos.
Simply put, well, I dwelled on it already, but compared to the conventional method, polyester is converted into intermediate, and then there will be depolymerization and then repolymerization, and finally made into recycled PET. So the overall process is shorter than before, energy consumption is less, and cost is also less. And also effluents and wastewater is reduced. In other words, waste can be minimized as well. So this is about technology, but with these technologies alone, it would be quite difficult to realize circular economy. And Nakano and company talked about this already, so I am repeating it. But the reason behind that is that most of the clothing are made of different fabrics. In other words, composites or blended fabrics, not a single material. For example, the pie chart explains that only 27% is single material, and the conventional chemical recycling assumes that material is single material, and when there is a heterogeneity that leads to coloring and also the final product not being homogeneous, and also the labeling is what we look at. But when we try to demonstrate recyclability, what we feel is the labels might say 100% one material, but you have buttons, and also you have the interlining or the adhesive resin print and so forth. So there are a lot of additives or additional elements, not just the fabric, and that really hinders the ease of recycling. In other words, truly 100% material is almost hard to find. But the recycling technology that we have now assumes that it is 100% one material. So there's a gap there. Therefore, technology development to make it truly single material, 100% single material is needed. Now, first thing is recycling of fibers. In other words, it has to start from the design stage, ease of recycling considered already. For example, monomaterials, and also registration of the makeup or the composition of the materials. But the information registered might be huge in amount, and it would take time before such products can be used and be distributed. So that's a problem. And Zera, by the other day, actually used this product, nylon-based recycled product. However, the texture or the functional capabilities might be reduced, and so that's a challenge. And also fasteners, buttons that are used, but how do you make them out of cotton, for example? It's a challenge as well. And another difficulty is to separate the materials, segregate them. And establishing pre-treatment process and technologies needed, identifying the different materials, and also separating the materials, the accessories versus the fabric, as well as chemical separation. So these are some of the processes that are needed. And urethane separation technology is already established in our company. So polyurethane. For comfort and relaxation in casual wear, there's a lot of materials that are using urethane or polyurethane. Elastic fibers, And when you do chemical recycling using the conventional method, you see the coloring as a problem, as you see at the top level here. And therefore, that made it difficult to recycle. However, polyester chemical recycling, in the pre-treatment process, we have this new step, which is a new processing agent being used. And then you can actually have good recycling because of no longer having this coloring issue, which makes it easier for the material to be recycled. But this is just one type of urethane-based materials. For other products such as based on nylon, acrylic, among others, we need to develop technologies for pre-processing for those other materials as well. And we are involved in NEDO projects as well as subsidy programs in which technologies are being developed to enable easier recycling for the different materials. And this is the to be circular economy that we would like to realize. However, we have so many challenges in society. For example, manual sorting that needs to be made more efficient. RFID tags being used so that we can collect necessary information. That part has to be more automated because it's manual right now. And also there has to be other challenges such as the separation of the different materials, the chemical materials among others, and also accessories and other things that are added onto the fabric need to be separated out as well. And also the byproducts that come out of the whole process needs to be leveraged and utilized as well. And cotton, wool, nylon, acrylic, these are all materials. But rather than one company addressing it, it's important that we share such resources across the board so that the whole of the country of Japan should collaborate to better utilize the resources that we have. And SDGs goal number 12, the responsibilities of manufacturing as well as consumption. Once we produce something, we need to bear the responsibility of the end state of the product as well, the life of the product as well. So that's our responsibility. And this is the final page. The technical challenges I have already touched on, but fiber to fiber recycling to be leveraged in society, it's important that you not just address the technical aspects, but other aspects as well. For example, currently, so much are being disposed of as is, and they're not recycled or reused. They're just disposed of as combustibles, like 500,000 tons or so are going down that path. Therefore, it's important we have this necessary culture as well as the system, the legal framework and other systems as well. There are cases where the quality goes down as a result of recycling. Therefore, recycling, whether you recycle it as is or you convert them back into fiber and reuse, whatever path you take, there will be cost incurred, and the consumers therefore should keep that in mind as well. Not always buy brand new virgin material-based products, but be willing to pay more for recycled products or reused products. So again, these are three areas: the systems, the technologies, the culture. All of these three are in need. And again, a country-wide whole of a country approach is necessary for us to really realize circular economy overall. Thank you very much. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Tomotaki-san.
Anyone who has questions or comments about his presentation? And if I may, while you are thinking about your questions, so let me ask two questions. First is, and I'm not familiar with the very scientific aspects like chemical recycling and so forth. And there is a PET bottle and the polyester. The material are the same because the bottle can be used to create the fiber. But when it comes to the PET bottle, bottle to bottle is the mechanical recycling, and the Suntory and other beverages companies are working hard to collect the bottles so that bottles can be converted back into bottles. But mechanical recycling from fiber to fiber, and you talked about some difficulties involved in it. But are there any other companies who are working on the mechanical recycling technologies? That's one. And the other question is, so the TEIJIN Frontier is now working on the new BET method, a chemical recycling method for fiber to fiber recycling. And Mr. Fujita from Nakano talked about the importance of just making sure that there are exits for collected textiles. And the question, very important question, is that how much it can be sold. And when I was listening to your presentation, I was thinking, in order to convert fiber back into fiber, there may be some costs involved, of course. And what is your outlook for the costs aspects of such a fiber to fiber recycling? Thank you for the questions. And then first question, mechanical recycling. And if I may talk about the wider definition of mechanical recycling, so it's a physical mechanical recycling, and the shredding is one of the mechanical recyclings that the Nakano company talked about. And then part of the recycled material can be recycled. I'm sorry, some portion, some part of the collected material can be recycled by utilizing a mechanical recycling. But the difficulty is that the fiber filament becomes shorter and shorter when you repeatedly recycle them. So there is a need for developing a new technology to cope with it. The second question is about the cost. While it's costly, and one of the factors is that we have to pay for collected material. So in the current system, we do not have a clear system who pays for the costs for the collection. So how we can share the burden of collection, and then the future costs will be different. But right now, we don't have the established mechanism for that. So that's what I can say right now. Thank you very much. Any other question or comments from the floor? From the participants?
No question? Nakano word, yes. It's me again, I apologize. Now, TEIJIN is making clothing as well, if I understand correctly. So as a manufacturer of clothing, maybe 100% one material or recycling. What is the stance of TEIJIN as a clothing manufacturer? Mr. Tomotaki, can you hear us? You're muted, and I think the video is frozen now. TEIJIN is a big company covering a large area of business. Now, TEIJIN Frontier is conducting fiber-to-fiber recycling, and as a clothing or a textile manufacturer, there was this question. Okimoto of TEIJIN Frontier speaking. I think Mr. Tomotaki's PC is not doing quite well because he said that he has a new computer which is not functioning too well. So let me answer the question on his behalf. We have trading company functions as well. We cover fashion, uniforms, and other textile products as well as textile fabric. So we do engage in such products of clothing. And what we do in making proposals to our customers, we promote that the customers use single materials, recyclable, if possible, eco-friendly materials. So we are trying to promote that when we deal with the customers. For example, byproducts of polyester, buttons, fasteners. We are making proposals so that we can have no need, we will have no need of separating buttons and fasteners. So that is the kind of proposals we are making to our customers now. I hope this answers your question. Okay, Ito-san of Nakano, yes. Thank you. TEIJIN and other large companies that are selling the textile products. I think if the major companies take the lead, others will follow. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Tomotaki-san and Okimoto-san from TEIJIN answered that question for you. So sorry that I was disconnected. Any other question? If not, thank you, Mr. Tomotaki.